Hello viewers, Super GT here. Now we have a rather peculiar week of daily races. That is a bit of an oxymoron, isn't it? Daily races this week. But there you go. Okay, first up, we're going to be racing Group C cars around Alsace. As you can see, we're going for the Sauber because it is the best car. And before I jump into doing any races, I wanted to show you my qualifying lap because I think a few people might want to see this.
Come on.
Okay, so coming up to turn 1.
No.
Fourth gear, braking just before the 50, down to second gear. This car, very tricky to drive around this type of circuit, and it does require a lot of commitment on the power, but also a lot of patience mid-corner.
Lost 2/10 in the last sector there.
We're coming through this long left here. Now look for the arrows on the left-hand side. Boom, braking just before those, down 2 gears into second. Play it nice and patient, wait for that apex, back on the power, back over to the right. And then you've got this long left, back off the power to get the front to bite in, and then power out to the outside, back over to the left, up into fourth gear. But you're gonna go down 2 gears, and you can come out of this corner in third. Actually, shift back up to third mid corner, take a bit of a wide line. And the weird thing about these cars is that the gear shifts are so slow because it's an old car. The gear shifts are so slow, so a lot of the time you're kind of shifting earlier than you'd want, at mid corner where it doesn't actually matter, where you're not actually losing any time. So it's a bit of a weird strategy, but after watching some of the top times going around this track, that seemed to be the way forward. Now on this lap so far, I'm about 3/10 up on my 37.6, PB at this time being a 37.3, and I think a fair few people might want to see this lap because it's a tricky combination. I did say a couple of weeks ago you don't want to go too wide there onto the grass. This track did come up a couple of weeks ago, and I said it's like the weirdest track in the game, and I still stand by that. It's a very weird track. But strangely enough, it kind of works in these cars. It actually flows rather well. Now we're going to come across the line here at the end of the lap to set a 37.2. Yes, come on. 37.2. And with that, I was rather happy. We're going to go into race number 1. And as you can see here, second on the grid, up behind Formula 1 fan 456. And just in front of This Is Fake Nudes, interestingly. Okay then, 10 laps. Now you don't have to pit on this race. You can if you want, if you're an absolute maniac and you're aficionado of Ferrari strategies. But ultimately you don't need to. It's a straight dash. It's a 10 lap sprint race. And it will last about 16-17 minutes. Let's see if we can overhaul the Formula 1 fan then. Now of course, as I mentioned earlier, the Sauber is the car to choose. You don't really want to choose any other car, as they're all going to be at least a couple of tenths off per lap. I did try out some of the other cars, the Nissan and the Mazda 787B. Both quick of course, but a little bit off, maybe 3-4 tenths off per lap minimum. So over the course of 10 laps you're going to be losing 3-4 seconds based on that, and you can't really afford to do that. Okay, so here, halfway through lap number 1, and already the guy ahead just beginning to edge away slightly, but it is a fairly lengthy race. It is only lap 1, so let's not get too ahead of ourselves just yet. This is a tricky section here, and if anything, I'd overcook it completely, as I seem to always do. I need to perhaps buy some sort of alarm for when I'm cooking, because I do seem to overcook a fair amount. Just need to improve my cooking skills, it seems. Down the hill then, tricky little sequence at the end of the lap, using plenty of the curb, and then out of the exit of this final corner. It's just about commitment and getting a brave exit early on the power up against the wall, as close as you can get to it. So first lap, and the guy ahead clearly very quick, as he should be because he was on pole position. Just beginning to edge away. You have to get very comfortable with the track limits, especially on the exit of turn 1 there. This is the beginning of lap number 4, and you see the gap just opening up slightly. I'm a little bit wide from turn 1, setting a 39.9 on that lap, and well, he set a 39.6, so you can see that, and I set a 39.9, so he was 3 tenths quicker on that lap. So very fine differences here, just a matter of tenths in it between the two of us. He is beginning to pull away, but you just never know. You have to kind of just hang in there, just hope that he'll make a mistake. And by lap 7, you can still see this very close. He goes a little bit wide there, and the gap here by this point is 7 tenths, or in fact less than, as we come down the hill. Previous lap was a 39.7. He's improved his PB to a 39.388. So it's a close one. Definitely going to gain on this lap. As we cross the line, that's going to be our best lap of the race so far, 39.515. So just over a tenth away from what Formula 1 fan managed a couple of laps ago. So this one is now ebbing and flowing. It's a very close one. You can see the consistency. Pretty much all of the laps below 1 minute 40, 100 seconds. So this one could go either way. It's very difficult though. As soon as you get quite close to the car in front, you get a lot of the dirty air and your car just doesn't really fancy turning around the corners. So you do have that extra difficulty to deal with as soon as you start getting as close as we are here, about 6 tenths behind. You're going to start noticing that difference, and it does make it harder to overtake, and that does help the car in front. The car in front, he's driving very well, and you have to respect that he's not really making too many mistakes. The mistakes he's making are only worth, he's only losing a tenth or two, and that looked like a massive mistake. Turns out it was just lag. Unfortunately for me, I thought he was just going to drive himself off the track, unknowingly, unwittingly, but no, it was just a bit of a connection issue. Okay, end of lap number 9, one more lap left to go, and it is still very close, setting a 39.9, so pretty much all of the laps after lap 2 below 39, just perhaps lacking that consistency. If we could do a 39.5 every lap, then we'd be right on him, but it is very difficult to drive this car consistently, to within 1 tenth. I've been doing it consistently within 4 tenths, which is not too bad, but always room for improvement in motor racing. If you think there's no one in the world who can't improve, and I'm very much included in that. At the end of the race, coming into the final sequence of lap number 10, and it was a weird race. It was static, not much happened, but it was very intense the whole way through. And we come across the line to finish second. It was a really good race. It was 16, nearly 17 minutes of racing. We were split by only 0.8 at the end. And even though there's no overtaking, it was very good fun. Now, we had another race here in the Americas region. I was second, coming into the final corner. And you wonder, you see a yellow flag, you come through, and what do you know? The leader has just binned himself as he's facing 90 degrees across the track. And we're just going to come through to take a glorious victory. Now, of course, we have to go and see what the hell that guy was doing, because he had that race in the bag. Let's have a look then. This is the replay. Comes through the final corner, and I did say you have to get quite cozy with that wall, but obviously not that cozy. But the physics kind of did him over there, just kind of spinning him 90 degrees. Very, very unusual. And let's have another look. Boom. As you do. Physics really on point there, of course. So Scott Speed getting a rather gifted victory, but I'll take them. I mean, if it's a gifted victory, I'll take it, you got to take them when they come. So now we're going to jump into race B in the Greg's Mobile, the Viper. Now, I was quite happy to see this car being used, because typically Group 4, at least in my experience around this track, is always dominated by the Audi TT, which is just a bit of a shocking understeery car to drive. It's a very quick car, obviously, but very difficult to drive. So we're starting third on this occasion. I've set a fairly decent lap, which I'm happy with, which dips into 44, so what was it, 44.9, my qualifying lap. I think I could go a little bit quicker, but for Group 4, I'm quite happy with that. Starting third on the grid this time around. So let's see if we can have some good races. The Sauber race around Alsace, I mean, it was a good race, but it often settles down into a race where you're not going to have too much overtaking, because it is quite hard to overtake around that track in that car. But this race is very different. This track, Dragon Trail Seaside, it lends itself to overtaking. There's so many overtaking opportunities, and the first of which is looking like it's going to present itself here as we take a nice tighter line on the exit of that downhill hairpin, and then coming towards the depth chicane. This is a situation you don't really want to find yourself in. Side by side going in, and yeah, that happened. That did not go well at all. It looked like we both kind of wanted to give way to each other. It was a really weird situation where we were both being nice to each other. So I was slightly ahead, but he was on the inside, so he gave way to me because I was ahead. Set the quickest lap on my way to try to hunt these guys back. But he gave way to me because I was slightly ahead, but I gave way to him because he was on the inside. It was a bit of a weird one, and then we both second-guessed each other, and I ended up crashing. But that is just the death chicane for you. So eventually, by lap 3, we managed to find our way back into 14th. We did go down to 15th after that collision with the wall and our brush with death. We continue. We're going to try to tame the chicane throughout the course of this remaining races. Unfortunately, we get a penalty there. It was so close. You have to keep 2 wheels on that curb, and honestly, it must have been a pixel. 1 pixel away. But, well, the game doesn't lie, and we can moan about penalties, but I think track limit penalties are pretty much always bang on. They're always consistent, for the most part anyway. And just look at this crazy moment here. I could not see these guys last second, just managed to slalom through them. So we have the death chicane, and we have another death chicane of mobile cars coming through the exit. Rather crazy little moment that. Just managing to escape with my life. So if the death chicane wasn't enough, then you have to do another one just after. All good fun though. We managed to get through into 11th. We do still have the half-a-second penalty to serve, and we've got these 2 cars to try to contend with. The Audi TT, for those wondering who are doing this race this week, the Audi TT is quicker in a straight line. It just struggles in the corners a little bit more. So the Viper, just a lot easier to control in the corners. That especially helps in the death chicane. But the Audi TT is very good in a straight line, so it's good for overtaking. And it's hard to defend against the Audi if you're driving in the Viper, especially if you're isolated and there's just you two. Okay, so we go down to 11th. Now the guy behind, the Greek driver, started 4th. I started 3rd. So kind of shows you how much of a disastrous race we've both had, going from 3rd to 4th to now 11th and 12th. Now I made it my mission to try to catch up with the 2 guys ahead and maybe gain 1 more position, but it wasn't going to happen. Finishing 11th, definitely a disaster, because I feel like probably could have been a 3rd as I started 3rd. But as I said, we're going to try and tame the chicane as we look on in horror at that awful result. We've got to do a lot of self-reflection here and hope that we no longer dice with death through the chicane. Okay then, we progress on to race number 2 of race B. Now this time something added into the mixer, which is an Audi TT in front, which changes things, changes the complexion of the race slightly. As we just mentioned, the Audi TT really good in a straight line, so we can try to follow them through. Not having the best first sector here, you can see already half a second behind, more than. And of course, if we drop out of that slipstream range, then it becomes very difficult. Now downhill into this hairpin, guy trying up the inside from behind the German, and he almost makes it work. There he is, but has to settle in just behind. And coming into the death chicane then, let's see if we can just get it right on this occasion. Very difficult. You can take it flat out, as we seem to have just done there, but it's very difficult to get it dead right, especially if you're in the slipstream. I think you do have to lift, as we make an absolute hash of that final corner and annoyingly fall out of the slipstream range, which is quite disastrous. Now the guy behind was very sensible here. He didn't really go for the move. He was willing to work with me, because look ahead, the top three are abreast into turn 1, and that means they're all going to slow each other down. So we have a second chance at this race. I lost the toe, but immediately we get back in the toe, and the guy behind played that really clever, because he could have overtaken me and perhaps potentially caused an incident or slowed us both down, but he was like, no, let's work together and just get back onto the toe. So that guy behind very willing to work together, and it's actually worked, because now we have another chance in the slipstream of the guys ahead. So coming down the hill into the triple chicane, difficult to get this one right, and it's very easy to just get the first bit wrong, and then once you get the first bit wrong, you get the second bit wrong, you get the third bit wrong, and that can happen a lot. Now look at the top 4 here, look at the top 5. The guy behind me is very close as well. Going down the inside doesn't quite happen. The Hungarian driver blocks it, so we have to go to the outside. I'm going to go quite deep here, perhaps too deep, and get unsettled on the curb. And boom, look at that, look how close the top 4 are. This is surely going to spell trouble into, well, you know what's coming, as they go in there side by side. Not an ideal situation, as we saw in the previous race, and just into the back of the Hungarian driver. Helps him out a little bit, but no, 2-second penalty. And that's just Gran Turismo being Gran Turismo. Quite a frustrating moment, because I felt like I actually helped that guy, because he kind of made a mistake and I pushed him into, well, I just boosted him basically. But there you go. We dropped down into 8th. Looks like that's going to be 9th. Should have perhaps blocked that move, but yeah, we go down into 9th place. But judging by how close the pack is at the front, there's always still a chance of something happening because they were fighting so aggressively with each other that we could perhaps go for or catch up if they continue to fight. There is only 1 1/4 lap remaining though. Okay, so I'll force this guy narrow. You're looking for the cutback here. Always a possible move on this corner. And we've managed to make that happen. So, on the exit, we just try to nail this. Let's try and get it flat out. Look for the acceleration bar at the bottom of the screen. A very, very slight lift, but good enough. And it looks like the German now making a mistake and being claimed, or being half claimed by the chicane. So up into 7th. Look how close it is at the front. This is the good thing about this race, which is it's very close pack racing in the slipstream. This guy let me through for some reason and wanted to let me through into 6th place, but I don't really want to just be gifted 6th place for the meme, so I just gave it to him back on the line. And there we go, 7th. Again, a bit of a disappointment because of that penalty, of course. So we must go again and try to get that good race. We just want a good race. Well, to be fair, the races are good. It's just kind of ruined by one little mistake. But that's the kind of the way it is. And the Audi going in narrow. We can do our little pullback move on the exit and jump up into 3rd. I was feeling a little bit better about this race. Is he going to back out? Yes, he is, just about on the way out of that corner. Chicane getting very close to the wall. And we've got a run here. We've got a bit of extra momentum compared to the Portuguese driver. I'm J Concepts. And he moves to the left, or keeps to the left, the racing line. I'm going to go up the inside. We're going to go for 2nd. We're not going to wait about this time. Up into 2nd we go then. Now we can tuck into the slipstream of the car ahead. Look at the difference here as we fast forward it. Eventually we get going. And not quite close enough to go for this move into the final corner. So we're just going to stick behind for now. Still a long way to go. 3 more laps left. There's no need to rush things at this point in time. And a little bit later on, lap number 2 still though. And just looking behind, the Audi TT all over the exit and losing crucial momentum down this hill. So perhaps this 4-way fight has become a 3-way fight for the time being. So Reba taking quite a narrow line there, conscious of perhaps the cutback possibility on the exit of that corner. That's the good thing about that corner. It really does promote overtaking, either on the way in, as you've got a big downhill braking zone, but also on the way out, as you can get the cutback on the way through the exit of that corner. Now I didn't get the best of runs there. We've got J Concepts on our inside, go semi-defensive, but he is going to go up the inside. I couldn't quite block that one. He was already partially alongside. So I have to let that one happen. Back down to 3rd. So this race going up and down, it's a good race. It's a really good race. Into the braking zone of turn number 1. Technically turn 2, I suppose. And on the exit, getting a good run through here. On the run towards the next corner, looking up the inside, not really close enough, not really alongside enough to make that one stick, so we have to settle in behind for now. Not do anything stupid at this point in time. Getting very, very cosy. We're all nose to tail completely for a brief moment there. The gap to 4th, 2.5 seconds, so it really is a 3-way fight at this point in time. Downhill chicane, we're going to look for this exit move. Is it quite going to happen? Yes, it is. He seems to get a really poor run on the exit there, so we are going to slot in ahead. Back into 2nd with just over a lap to go. Let's try not to make a mistake here. And it looks like we are getting the chicane a lot better now, more consistent. And in fact, the guy behind actually making a mistake and just dropping back more than half a second behind now. And he's in danger of losing the toe. Into the final corner, lap number 3, 1 more to go. Reba going defensive. And we're going to go for the run into turn 1 then, or turn 2. Here it is then. Look at the difference in slipstream. I want the left-hand side, even though we're going for a right-hander here. The left-hand side is the inside for this corner. There we go. Big braking zone. We get the job done. Into the lead at the beginning of the final lap. Now, we still have 2 cars right behind. There they are. Look at that. Look how close it is. So this certainly is not over yet. Into the braking zone of this next hairpin. And he's gone up the inside. It's a late move. There was a bit of contact. just onto the grass, and we're down into second, now down into third. Oh my goodness, we were winning this race, and now back down into third place with only half a lap left to go. We have to really fight this one back to try to rescue this win. It looked like it was looking good at the beginning of this lap, but now all of a sudden we're back in third place. Now down into this downhill hairpin, this is where things can really open up. What is going to happen here? Reba's going to go to the right hand side, go defensive. J Concept's also to the outside. I've gone even more to the outside, looking for the cutback. I do briefly make contact with him, so I'm not going to overtake here. We're just going to back out because I did force him slightly wide and resume third place. Okay, Death Chicane one final time in this race. Just going to get through there as close as we can to the wall. It really is a brush with death. But we escape down into the final corner. Concept on the outside. We're going to go up the inside a little bit late on the brakes, just into the back of Reba. Causes a bit of a concertina effect, and unfortunately, after all that, so frustrating. A tiny mistake, and we get handed a 2-second penalty. I was so frustrated. I just drove into the pit lane to end that race. But it's a very frustrating end. It was a very frustrating end, but let's not forget that 99% of that race was an awesome race. So as annoying as it was still a good race. So courtesy of all my misdemeanors and ramming and all of that, we got demoted down to a lower ranked lobby. But this was actually a really good race. We agreed that we were going to have just a clean race to make sure our ratings go back up, and that's exactly what happened. So I overtook the guy in first, and then I made this mistake on lap 3. He got me back, as you can see on the right hand side. There he is, just poking into the screen. And then he settled into the lead. But then I went for the instant reply at the beginning of lap number 4, going up the inside, which is the move we did on the previous race as well, and moving back into first. And he wasn't quite close enough to go for this move into the final corner, so we're going to consolidate the win. He could always get the slipstream. You've got to always worry about that, as he was close on the exit, but I wasn't close enough. So that was actually a really good race, and ironically enough in the lower rated lobby. But we managed to get a win, and that gave us the impetus to increase our SR back into the top level, where we go for one more race, and we're going to try and secure just a decent race without a penalty and without any deaths and without being claimed by the chicane once again. And look up the inside here of Melton Spurs. Didn't quite happen. The Audi again really good on power, so in a direct drag race you're probably going to lose out if you're in the Viper compared to the Audi TT. You just got to make the most of the corners in this car compared to the Audi. Okay, chicane then, lap number 1, a little bit wide. Oh, looks like Reba's made a mistake, and he's going to drop down the order, down into 5th for him. Or in fact, no, down into 6th for him, or 7th actually. So now, I wanted to form an alliance with the Spurs supporter, and I didn't know there was actually a guy behind, you can see on the inside there. As I wanted to just try to catch back up with second, and use the straight line speed of the Audi to my advantage as well as his advantage, try to sort of bump draft each other. So it was an unlikely alliance, especially given that I am an Arsenal fan, so therefore be working with a Spurs fan. But sometimes desperate times call for desperate measures, and it wasn't quite working as he kind of overshot this one into turn 1. We weren't quite gaining as much as I'd like, and I just nudged him here into the gravel. Just had to back out to make sure he kept the position, and there's cars queuing up behind us, as you can see on the radar, into this right hand kink and then into the hairpin. So now it looked like perhaps Spurs didn't quite have the speed on this race anyway. Guys behind just dropping back slightly. So now I felt like, okay, well, it's not quite going to happen for second now, maybe. You can see the gap already too big. The race became stretched here. So I got the inside and pull off a rather tidy move and move up into third onto the podium. Is he going to go for the cutback? Not quite. And okay, let's see if we can not die through here. We've got a clear run ahead of us. Look at that commitment, very close indeed. Pretty much took it perfect, but very, very close to death. Once again, drinking game for death. If anyone wants to rewind the video and play that game. Ironically enough, I think that game will cause you your own death. Now down the hill, looking for the 150 board. Boom, there it is at the start of that curb. I forced him to the outside. There's no way around the outside. Of course, the cutback possibility is always there, but the Audi's not the best on the exit of that corner, given that it's the way that it understeers, basically. It horrifically understeers. Had to defend turn 1 at the beginning of lap 4. Of course, the Audi very good in a straight line, so that turn 1 or turn 2 braking zone is probably the best bet for that car to go for a move. Managed to repel that overtake on this occasion. So we're still in 3rd, and I'll be happy with this result. Let's not forget we started 5th, so moving forward and finishing on the podium is always good. He was close here. Now the Audi's really good on the brakes. He's good in a straight line, good on the brakes. And he was within that range where you start thinking, is he going to go for that move? He's not quite close enough, I don't know. He wasn't close enough, he didn't go for it. And through the chicane, we managed to pull away this time. Thankfully, this gives us a half-second buffer into this final corner of the final lap, so I didn't really have to worry about defending. And do go a little bit wide, and this corner seems to be my absolute nemesis. But on the exit, we consolidate our 3rd, and finally get a decent result without a penalty, which I was really happy with. But that is the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching as always. I certainly do hope you enjoyed it. If you're new to the channel, obviously give us a sub if you did enjoy that one, and drop a like. But in the meantime, take care, stay safe, and I shall see you all very soon. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.